Thanks a lot for staying with us. Welcome to Politics Tonight, where we dig and go beyond the headlines for informed analysis of major political stories in Nigeria. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. People of Ijaw and SL, the local government areas of Ondo State, expresses satisfaction with the decision of President Tinubu to replace Ondo State's representative in the board of NDDC. On the interview segment for today, we focus on the new Niger Delta minister and the challenges ahead, with the president of Ijaw Youth Council, Jonathan Lokobiri, as our guest, as well as the Commissioner for Budget and Economic Planning in Zamfara State, Abdulmalik Abubakar Gajam, for discussion on the first 100 days of Governor Dauda Lawal. Welcome to Politics Tonight. Stay with us. We will be right back. Thank you so much for staying with us. Welcome back to Politics Tonight. Now, let's begin with some developments in the polity. The people of Ijaw and SL, the local government areas of Ondo State, have expressed satisfaction with the recent decision to replace the NDDC's Ondo State representative nominee. President Bola Tinubu had last week approved the immediate replacement of the NDDC's Ondo State representative nominee, Victor Akijo, with a new representative nominee, Otito Atikashi. Some youths from Ijaw and SL, the local government areas of Ondo State, had protested against the appointment of Kolade Akijo into the board of the Niger Delta Development Commission. Let's take a short break, and when we return, it will be time to speak with our first guest of the day, who is the president of Ijaw Youth Council, Jonathan Lokobiri, for discussion on the new Niger Delta minister and the challenges ahead. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Politics Tonight, digging beyond the headlines. And now to our interview with the first guest of the day. I'm joined by the president of Ijaw Youth Council, Jonathan Lokobiri, for discussion on the new Niger Delta minister and the challenges ahead. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Jonathan.
Thank you. Good evening.
Council always embroiled in one crisis or the other, but particularly leadership crisis. Why do you have factional president?
Please let me correct that wrong impression. There's no factional leadership in council. Let me liken this to a scenario where those who run against President Tinubu will one day claim that they are also presidents of Nigeria. That's the credence you are giving to the question, by the question you are given. There's no factional leadership. Leaders emerge through electoral process. And everything that led to my emergence as president of council were all documented, followed by TVC, Arise TV, and other major platforms. People can't just declare themselves they are leaders when they didn't emerge from electoral processes. Remember, I was in this race 10 years ago, got elected, but because it was characterized by crisis, we let go and then waited for 10 years. So every documentation, your agent in Bayelsa, your studio manager personally participated in the electoral process. If anybody has any contrary election as claimed by anybody, let them show it. The world would see. So there's no factional leadership in council. If anybody has any evidence to prove to you that an election took place anywhere else from which any other leaders emerged, please bring it before the world.
Okay, if you said there is no factional president, what was the election that was held where Dr. Theophilus ally emerged president and thereafter accused some aggrieved stakeholders of fanning the embers of the vision within the council within the emblem of the council.
I think that question will be better answered by him. Let him prove how he got elected. The only information available to the Ijaw public and Nigeria at large is that somebody somewhere, the outgone infamous leader, left a convention in a juxtaposed style on his way running back to Port Harcourt in the middle of the night, entered an uncompleted filling station and handed a flag to somebody and said, "You are my successor." So it's not known to Ijaw Nation. The INC, which is the parent body of the Ijaw Nation, personally participated in this electoral process. The governor of Bayelsa participated. Former presidents of council are all in this. These were covered by major news platforms like the Arise TV network, your station TVC, and NTA, and a whole lot of that. So I cannot give credence to somebody who handed a flag, as if leaders emerged through the handing of a flag to somewhere inside an uncompleted filling station. So I won't give that a credibility with attention. They are seeking attention. They are my brothers. They are my kinsmen. I agree. They need attention and relevance. Relevance, in my opinion, can be sought through means that are decent, not the desperation to desecrate this sacred organization that has defined our region over the years. So all right, so if worry less about what they say.
So if you say that's the case, like I said earlier, this is not the first time the council will be embroiled in leadership crisis. It looks like something that moves from a regime to another. But as a stakeholder, I expect that you must have studied this pattern. What do you think is the root cause of this crisis that moves from one regime to another?
Well, first, let me state that every struggle is defined by the character of its leader. The man who holds the mantle of leadership defines whether he will toe the path of honor or dishonor. The present moment you see was a leader elected under a peaceful, transparent, and credible process in Oporuza, where our leader, Chief Governor Tumpolo, hosted this event personally in his own community, wherein this outgone leader emerged. But somehow he took the part of dishonor by first staging his own self-kidnap, made money out of it, and at the end of the day, it shows that he must anoint a candidate. I have no problem with him anointing a candidate to take over. But there are laid down procedures by our constitution as well as our operational conventions over the years. We didn't form the IYC, our leaders did. We are only beneficiaries as ardent followers of this process until we are grown. So those processes were followed, but when a leader, just like Nigeria, let me cite an example. If President Buhari shows a path where he wanted to hand over the leadership of this country without an election, there would have been chaos. This was the path my dear friend Peter Ibufa took. And there are videos, evidences from Arise TV and TVC wherein he absconded from a convention supposedly made for the election to take place, only for us to hear in the middle of the night that he has handed a flag to somebody inside an uncompleted filling station in Ahoda. It's not known to us. We were not aware. Nobody else participated. All other candidates that ran the election, that bought form, got through the screening, campaigned vigorously, are still all alive. You can do this verification by yourselves. So whatever they intend to achieve is best known to them. I won't hate them for it. It's their choice. But let me say this. Every revolutionary struggle or movements across the world have had its peak moments of united activity as well as valleys of internal debate and confusion. Unfortunately, ours, which is the most potent platform for leadership in the Niger Delta, is embroiled with this simply because of wrong leadership that we all elected. We're all responsible for it. And for me, I blame no one for it. But the fact is, we have chosen to move on. That's who we are. Thank you.
All right. So talking about moving on, I know the council is an embodiment of over 50 million Ijaw youths, and one would expect that with enormous challenges facing that region, unity should be sacrosanct, devoid of interest. So what do you think the council needs to do to unite the entire Niger Delta?
Well, as a leadership of NEC, we're doing everything to peacefully seek methods of reuniting our people, inspiring confidence among our people, and setting a new agenda for not just us, but also for the political class, because the expectations are high, and in a country where there's a huge vacuum between expectations and fulfillment, we need every hands on deck to pursue this noble goal. So we're doing everything within our powers, but you can always understand that in every movement there's always a recalcitrant few. Right. But that truly does not stop the larger population from moving on. In every society we have recalcitrant few amongst us, and that's the experience we're having. But like I said, I wouldn't toe the path of violence in an attempt to establish my dominance or my authority. The reason is I got elected legitimately, and that legitimacy will drive every of our actions. Thank you.
So let's talk about developments in the Niger Delta. What do you consider the biggest challenge facing the region?
Well, first, individual greed and corruption has always been the greatest bane of not just the Niger Delta, but Nigeria as a whole. Beyond the corruption of those who have managed this ministry or agencies of development, let me also say this. There is a huge deceit from the part of federal government where promise of development and allocations or monetary provisions made to meet these expectations is totally antithetical. You said you want this ministry was established to meet the infrastructure deficit of this region. This was the idea behind the creation of this ministry. And then the budgetary provision made for this environment or this region is paltry compared to what infrastructural need that is expected from budgetary provision. So there's a huge effort that still needs to be put in place to ensure that there's promise and there's fulfillment. Democracy, in my opinion, must be transformed from this thin paperwork of promise to thick action based on performance. And that has to be done with the amount of resources also allocated for these purposes.
So, in other words, you think budgetary allocation is the most critical issue facing that region. Is that it?
Yes, but the will of politicians also must play that role in bringing promises to fulfillment.
All right. So a new Minister of Niger Delta Affairs is here. What do you think should be his focus? First,
the true mandate of this ministry, as envisioned by late President Umar Yar'Adua, who created or established this ministry on the 10th of September 2008, was first to meet the infrastructural development of this region, to tackle the environmental challenges that have characterized our agitations, and then to meet youth empowerment these were the two cardinal goals behind the creation of this ministry. Unfortunately, none of them have been met even halfway. The minister today, Mr. Abubakar Momo, has a huge task. This task is not just the issues of poor infrastructure we're meeting today, but also meeting the social hopes of our people. There's so much distrust, especially from this ministry, more especially when it has become a hub of corruption for our leaders to share whatever little provisions made by federal government as budget for this region. This is after several years today, but there's no tangible project that you can ascribe to the success of the Niger Delta ministry. Whilst we may not kill our leaders for this failure, part of the reason is that there's so much lack of resources to meet because the difficulty in the environment in doing tangible projects is also made more a failure on account of the paltry budgetary provisions by the government of the Federation. So the minister has the difficulty of meeting or inspiring confidence in the public space. Also, having to deal with the issue of having adequate provision of budgetary allocation to this ministry to meet these key three cardinal objectives of this ministry for the region. So he has a huge task. We as leaders of this region, we have no choice but to work with him to inspire the public confidence, but he has the honus to show Niger Deltans that it would be different.
So talking about projects, with over 13,000 abandoned projects in that region, what do you think the new minister should do to check this? And sorry, apart from budget allocation, other stakeholders have talked about sourcing for funding.
Well, the IOCs that are development partners in this region, I think they lack the confidence in leaders who have managed these development agencies in our region. So a huge amount of money they ought to have been contributing to the developments through these agencies have still been held back. That is also a fact. So this minister first must collaborate well and show transparency in the conduct of his business as minister. Above all, what is most important, in my opinion, for our people is that it is not this school 6 classroom, bedroom, toiletries, and all of this stuff that a whole federal ministry is meant to address. That's not the problem of the Niger Delta. Those are things I do believe that state governments, local governments, and then the NDDC should be able to tackle. In my opinion, the East-West Road, which is a major economic line for our region, should be completely removed from the Ministry of Niger Delta and put under Federal Ministry of Works. You cannot allocate 40-something billion naira to a project that is over 500 billion. It will take several decades to achieve that. Though the past ministers of this ministry may not have done well by thinking that they must pride themselves with handling that project. That project is bigger than a ministry that barely has 100 billion allocated to it. So in my opinion, I'm using this medium to appeal to the president and the Minister of Works that project, especially the East-West Road project, be taken out of the Niger Delta ministry and be put under the Federal Ministry of Works. So it has that federal presence. You can imagine a situation where 260 billion was awarded on account of the last flood that ravaged the entire road up till this minute, even the damaged spots haven't been fixed. The question is, where is that money? This is the situation we're facing, and I do believe that we will probe into these provisions made that have had no impact on the lives of our people there.
So talking about the East-West Road, the minister has visited that project and has promised to relay his findings to the president. But talking about other projects, what other project do you consider dear to the people of Niger Delta that you will want the minister to urgently attend to?
In my opinion, in my considered opinion, projects that do not have a life-transforming effect on the lives of our people shouldn't be a priority. The first project the Niger Delta region needs most is fixing of that Niger Delta, the East-West Road. Beyond the East-West Road, because I do know that the Niger Delta Ministry has no capacity to undertake capital projects like the coastal rail line. If these two major projects are fixed for our region, economic activities will thrive by itself. And then state governments must have the sense of commitment to undertake, in collaboration with federal government and perhaps key other development partners, to undertake seaports. Our region is ripe for economic activities through the ports. That is the best way to engage and inspire economic activities in our region. Every other project this ministry is taking has almost zero impact. As much as I'm not an acute pessimist that we won't make progress, but the fact is it will take forever. By the quality of project they are doing, it will take forever to be noticed. And that is a fact.
So talking about oil theft and pipeline vandalism, which are still very rampant in the Niger Delta, who do you think should be blamed for this, and how will you advise the minister to approach this menace?
I think that requires a serious collaboration between agencies, different agencies of government, the military, and stakeholders like the IYC and other people within the region. The reason is there's a huge presence of high political and perhaps military officers who are involved in these bunkering activities. It is turning few people into billionaires, whilst the region is bleeding, as well as the environment, the impact on our environment is indescribable. So for us to undertake the issue of stopping oil theft, it must go beyond rhetorics. The president of this country must give a marching order to the Nigerian Navy to order military and paramilitary officials involved, especially with activities in the Niger Delta. You can see where military officers all across the country is struggling to be posted to the Niger Delta. Nothing else is inspiring that or motivating that. It's because the bunkering activities, either as security men aiding and abating these bunkering activities, as well as them sometimes officially or personally participating. Today, we have intelligence that over 300 and something points are still leaking, in spite of the efforts of Tantita and other people involved in this security of oil pipelines. A lot of the military is not cooperating. This is the intelligence we have from communities and stakeholders across the region. So the president must give a marching order that there has to be a joint effort by agencies and all partners, especially from those in our region, to undertake this onerous task of helping to stop this danger. The average life of Niger Deltans can almost be predicted because of the environmental hazard posed by actions of these oil bunkering activities in our region. While a few people are turning millionaires overnight, the health conditions of our people are depleting, the environment is bleeding, almost becoming inhabitable. So it should be a thing of major concern to all and sundry. This is a national chaos, in my opinion.
All right, so Mr. Jonathan, to add to that, and I know you're not hearing this for the first time, that Niger Delta youths are usually blamed as part of the problems in the region because they sometimes hinder execution of projects. As one of the youth leaders, how do you think this should be addressed?
Well, in every era, sometimes you have different elements who undertake certain actions to better their individual gains. But the fact is, we have a region to build. So my role as president of the Ijaw Youth Council worldwide is to continue to collaborate with our communities. That is why we have this spread across the entire region, working with our key leaders. You can see how I have taken time to visit almost every leaders from King Ateke to Asari to General Alali to Shoot Aside, Tumpulo, and everybody. The reason is not one person alone can do this. And for us to secure our environment, it will require a team of everybody playing its part, with government also sincerely playing its own role as supervisors. I don't want to believe that these are environmental assaults on account of these oil bunkering activities can successfully take place without some level of compromise from the military, because from every point you will move these your products you have leaked from would require you to pass through either a naval point or a military checkpoint, where sometimes they even subject our leaders to unnecessary torture. But how do all of these bunkering activities take place and successfully taken out of the shores of Nigeria to make the billions they make?
All right. So before I let you go, all right.
In my considered opinion, sincerity of purpose on the part of government, and this moment, I see a new beginning, especially with the new commitment I'm seeing from the Minister of Niger Delta, from the Minister of Petroleum Oil, from the Minister of Gas, and other partners. I want to see this same effort from the Minister of the Blue Economy. You can imagine when Tumpulo undertook the project of Nimasa security. You can attest to the fact that the revenue of Nimasa jumped from almost an average to a huge profit that the country benefited. But politics crept in, and some of those individual efforts of our leaders who are keenly working hard to ensure that our environment is secured, people and business activities will take place without people's life being endangered, were completely taken off on account of Nigerian politics. So I do think that key leaders who are genuine in their efforts be engaged in the next journey ahead.
All right. So before I let you go, let's talk about another fundamental issue in that region. Many have called for the scrap of the Amnesty program. What's your own position on this?
Let me tell the world clearly that that program cannot be scrapped. Ask me how and why. When President Yar'Adua considered that amnesty program, that program had about 6 cardinal pillars, among which 6 mega cities were supposed to be built. The only thing that the amnesty program has undertaken was the disarmament, the demobilization, and just a paltry part of the reintegration process. This 65,000 naira they are paying to people that appears as if they are paying Niger Delta people money was only a feeding money for agitators who enlisted under this program. It wasn't supposed to be a program of pride to a country. Today, the inflation Nigeria witnesses today, 65,000 naira today, in terms of the value of it today, is only perhaps around 18,000 naira by today's value. So, if a government has not done any of the major tasks that program was created for, and you are considering winding up the program, it's sometimes unthinkable for me. For anybody who thinks that you can wind down a program whose aim hasn't been achieved, is only mischievous. And we won't let that happen. As Niger Deltas, we won't let that happen.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I've been speaking with Jonathan Lokmobiri, President of Ijaw Youth Council, and tonight we discussed the new Niger Delta Minister and the challenges ahead and other issues. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.